Tonight, the fight for America's working class.
My numbers are the highest numbers in the history of the Republican Party with the Latinos.
Can Biden out-Trump Trump?
I'm calling on her to consider tripling the tariff rates for both steel and aluminum imports from China.
Road trip.
Immediate return, we got a piece of the engine cowling hanging off.
A Boeing whistleblower joins pilots to say America's skies aren't that safe. The common thread of missing doors and jet engines falling apart. It's not that hard.
Has he been terminated as chair? Congresswoman, I want to confirm the facts before getting back to you.
Why 6 months into Jew hatred in America,
Palestinians are oppressed! Palestinians are oppressed! Boycott, sanction, and divest! Boycott, sanction, and divest!
colleges still can't get it right. How siding with terrorists became morally defensible.
The same Jew hate that drove my family to the U.S. has become normalized here.
And chain gang. God's misfits head to court for the murder of 2 moms in rural Oklahoma. Dog the bounty hunter on how small towns in the heartland become their own kingdoms. Why the local judge who talked to NewsNation yesterday resigned today.
We've had a lot of static about your interview, and we don't like it.
Welcome to the fairest show on television. First tonight, can woke Joe become Scranton Joe again? In 2016, Trump realized Democrats had abandoned the working class. In 2024, Joe Biden is trying to win them back. Here he is, Joe Biden, speaking to steelworkers in Pittsburgh.
And I'm calling on her to consider tripling the tariff rates for both steel and aluminum imports from China. We know that Chinese steel and aluminum are being imported in America through Mexico that avoids the tariff.
That's interesting. Because in 2019, everybody, and I mean everybody, made fun of Trump for his trade war with China. Everybody back then said tariffs don't work, including then candidate Joe Biden.
Iowa farmers have been crushed by his tariff war with China. And let's not forget how Donald Trump, weak and chaotic China trade policy has cost farmers and manufacturing so badly. Erratic trade war with China caused huge pain, including here in Iowa.
Now President Biden wants to triple the Trump plan. Biden wants to be more Trump than Trump, you might say. In 2020, Mr. Biden talked about police and bail reform, ending the Trump executive orders on the border, and free government health care. Fast forward to 2024. So 2020 was woke Joe. Now we're into Scranton Joe, back to Scranton Joe, the 40 years of Scranton Joe that Joe Biden said he was. 2024, executive actions to close the border, tripling tariffs on Chinese steel, and he has dropped his ban on federal oil drilling on federal lands. Now he just wants higher fees. He's in Pennsylvania for a 3-day swing. Pennsylvania, especially Western Pennsylvania, relies on fracking. So he has clearly changed his tune. We found the president's words interesting, but the imagery you are about to see is even more important. Every presidential photo op, every time that a president gets up and has groups behind him, where he is, how the lights are, with the direction of the sun, it is all extraordinarily carefully choreographed. So just watch this clip, and we're going to talk about it in a second.
Everyone deserves a fair shot, just a fair shot. And we're going to leave no one behind. Folks, that's my view of the economy from Scranton, from Pittsburgh, from thousands of working middle-class neighbors all across America. It's a future we're building together.
If you look at that graphic, if you look just at that shot that the White House advance team spent a while putting together, there isn't a single person of color we could see. That would have never happened in 2020. Might not have even happened a year ago, but it's happening now. Winston Churchill once said, anyone can rat, but it takes a certain amount of ingenuity to re-rat. Joe Biden for 40 years was Scranton Joe. To win in 2020, he became woke Joe. Biden and Democrats not only abandoned the working class, they scorned them. They called them racist, demanded they buy EVs, made them pay to forgive rich kids' student loans, allowed 7.2 million illegal immigrants in, allowed boys to play on their daughters' softball teams. The list goes on and on. Joe Biden now has 6 months to re-rat and become Scranton Joe again. As Churchill said, re-ratting takes a certain amount of ingenuity. Mike Huckabee's here, former presidential candidate who served as governor of Arkansas. I think I got a wry smile out of you with that.
Yeah, you got a real good smile out of me. I mean, you pretty well illuminated many of the things that Woke Joe is trying to change. And I think Woke Joe is now Broke Joe, because he's broken his trust with the people that he always thought were his constituency. But the most important thing you talked about, Leland, was that Joe has insulted, as have a lot of the Democrats, insulted middle America, working class America, made them feel like they've somehow they're not as good. They're the deplorables. They're the people clinging to religion and guns and all this stuff that has been said about them. And I don't think they're going to go back to Joe. I don't know why they would. Why would they?
Right. Okay. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That one always confuses me. Anyway, you think about, though, where we're at in terms of Joe Biden. 6 months is an eternity in politics. I don't need to tell you that. And a lot can change. And for as confident as Republicans are, I understand why. We look across the polling right now in swing states. Trump's up in most. Biden's up in Pennsylvania. But Trump's up in most. Need I remind Republicans that Joe Biden did beat Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think it's not something Republicans are looking at and saying, oh, we got this in the bag. There's no such thing in an election. And quite frankly, because there's a monolithic media that just goes after Trump every day and gives a tongue bath to Joe Biden's shoes every day, Trump's up against it. Plus, he's got all these court cases that are completely ridiculous, dragging him down, keeping him from being as much on the campaign trail as he would like to be. All of those are factors. But here's what is an absolutely unbreakable factor. People know what their personal economic situation was like when Donald Trump was president. They know what gasoline cost. They know what eggs cost. They know what butter, bread, and bacon cost. And they now know what it costs under Joe Biden. They know what it's like to be energy independent as a nation. They know what it's like to be begging Venezuela and other countries for energy. They know what it's like when we just about had our border completely under control, and now they know what it's like when the biggest cities in America are overrun with illegals, and they're taking up all the space, not just in hotels, but the community center where the people who live in that community used to let their kids go play. People aren't stupid, and Joe can tell them how great he's doing and what a wonderful job he's done with the economy, but people don't feel it, and they're not experiencing it, and he can't convince them something they don't see.
To that, okay, look, you make a great point about the communities, and we saw the reception that Donald Trump got in the bodega that had been robbed, and that this clerk had stabbed the robber in. You think about where polling is for Donald Trump on Latinos, or where it is for Joe Biden on both Latinos and blacks. NYT Siena College poll, Biden leading among black voters 69-16. He won 87-12. Biden leads among Latino 51-41. He won 65-32. So hemorrhaging support, double-digit losses. If this is the case, and as you point out, so many pocketbook issues, people are undeniably worse off now than they were 4 years ago. Why isn't Trump up by so much more? And I know you're going to blame the media, but if people aren't stupid, how can you?
Well, I think they clearly see that they're not doing well under Biden. They haven't yet come to grips with the fact their only choice is Donald Trump. I think they will, and Donald Trump has to sell it to them. He's got to go out there between now and November and convince them that he can turn this thing around. That's on him. Let's be honest. It's not a given, and that's why I said Republicans can't go around and be prepared to spike a ball because the game's still in play. And there's a lot of game left between now and November. But I'd rather be in Donald Trump's position than I would in Joe Biden's position, because everything Joe Biden is now saying he's going to do, you just talked about this tariff situation. Everything he's talking about doing is going back to the Trump policies that were working. And so maybe the message Trump goes out there and says, you can have Joe Biden and believe he's going to do my policies that he reversed on day one of his presidency, or you can just get the authentic real deal and elect me, and we'll go back to those things that were working for America and working for your family.
You know, Governor, I'm always glad to have you on, not only because I've considered you a friend and somebody I've covered for an awfully long time, have a lot of respect for, but you were one of the very first people to tap in to understand the populist vein that was coming into American politics. I think about your campaign in 2012 in Iowa as a real indication of that, in your campaigns later. Governor, it's good to see you. Thank you very much, sir.
Always a pleasure, Leland. Thank you.
Good to see you. College kids are by definition, well, they're college kids, so they're stupid. But how did they become Hamas supporters? And more importantly, who is the power behind pro-Hamas groups popping up in big and small towns across the country? Why it goes way beyond just protecting Jewish students.
Stop the U.S. war machine! Stop the U.S. war machine!
Misfits, what this group calls themselves is God's misfits. Laugh at the name all you want, but they allegedly ran northern Oklahoma with an iron fist, Dog the Bounty Hunter, on groups taking over rural Americans as people move out. Live pictures right now as you're looking at a pro-Hamas group there in New York City, just outside of Columbia University. They have promised to take over Columbia University in New York. They're turning the campus into what they're calling a Gaza solidarity encampment. The protests have happened in response to the school's president, who testified on Capitol Hill. There was a hearing today about the rise of anti-Israel sentiment on college campuses, the rise of people wanting to kill Jews and talk about wiping Israel off the map. Somehow that's become acceptable speech in America. Columbia's president, Dr. Nemat Shafik, took a strong stance against anti-Semitism, kinda, sorta, in stark contrast. Certainly it was strong in contrast to the December testimony of the Harvard and UPenn presidents. Neither of them still have a job, so she was trying to keep her job, fair enough. Today's testimony only seemed to make the pro-Hamas protesters on Columbia's campus more determined to spread their message of annihilating and killing Jews. Listen in to a little bit of both today.
We are all Palestinians.
Up with liberation.
Up with liberation.
Down with occupation.
Down with occupation.
Palestinians are oppressed.
Palestinians are oppressed.
Boycott, sanction, and divest.
Boycott, sanction, and divest. The occupation.
I find those chants incredibly distressing, and I wish profoundly that people would not use them on our campus. I wish that even more after the many, many conversations that I've had with our Jewish students when they tell me how they feel when they hear those words. They find it threatening, they find it frightening, and it's abhorrent and has no place in our community.
Bayangar Sargon is here, opinion editor of Newsweek. Her new book, Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, is on a bookshelf near you and should be purchased immediately. It's a great book. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leland.
As we are watching now what's happening not only on America's streets but on America's college campuses, do you think we really understand the level of hatred towards Jews, number one, that exists, and number two, that's permissible?
I have to say, I find the discourse around this really alienating. On the one hand, of course, I'm offended by a lot of the anti-Israel sentiment that you're seeing proliferating on college campuses. It's not pleasant to walk past a group of people calling, for the end of Israel and so forth. On the other hand, the idea that as Jews, we can't handle this, I find deeply offensive. And I don't understand why we're not teaching students, you are not made unsafe by a bunch of chanting 20-year-olds, because that is an option as well, right? We can call this out. We can say, this is gross. I don't agree with this statement, but you are not made endangered by people saying things that are gross.
No, you're not made endangered by people saying things are gross. To be fair, there are times that it has crossed the line from saying things to doing things. And I think this would be the question, right, is that we've been told all on and on and on. There is a First Amendment right to free speech, but then there is also a right to not feel endangered, and that perhaps, and I think is what you're picking up on here, it's been applied very differently, say, in the 2020 world of BLM than it is being applied now in the 2024 world of anti-Israel. This caught our eye, especially, we talked about it a lot yesterday. The University of Southern California, USC, canceled the valedictorian speech because she had posted and liked things on Instagram and social media that was, shall we say, not really leaving Israel a lot of room to exist. Here she was on CNN. Take a listen.
One of the items in this post calls for the complete abolishment of Israel. Is that a position that you endorse?
If you're asking me if I stand for human rights, if you're asking me if I stand for equality and unequivocal and unconditional right to life for all people, including Palestinians, then I'm not apologetic. I believe in what I believe, and it is because of the people around me that I've met at USC, the classes that I've taken, the professors that I have learned from, that have led me to look at the world in this way.
Okay. And look, we said a lot yesterday that USC is the real cowards here because they said they're canceling the speech because of safety, not because this person is a virulent anti-Semite who has talked about destroying Israel. This is the question, though. Do colleges have a responsibility to treat speech the same? Okay, if you can't say this, then you can't say that.
I want to ask you something, Leland. Do you think that that person believes that America should exist? I promise you she doesn't, right?
Right.
So, yeah, there's a double standard. The double standard is between how people of color are treated and how white people are treated. Jews are getting the white treatment. Why was it okay to say hateful things about white students and about America, and now suddenly everybody's woken up? You're right. We should have one standard, but that standard should be capacious and it should be applied equally. It's not being applied equally, but for us to act like this is a double standard against Jews, that's not what's happening here. It is the woke standard that distinguishes between the powerful and the powerless. It is sociopathic, and it is endemic on American universities. The Jewish thing is a symptom of a much bigger problem.
That actually may be a much scarier reality.
It is.
Right? It's a far scarier situation. Piers Morgan, of all people, was asking about that when he was talking to a, you can call it pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, whatever you want to call a person, about people chanting death to America. Take a listen.
Well, what do you think about people chanting death to America, as they did in one video clip?
I think that that's just a phrase maybe said by an individual.
Well, no, the whole crowd began joining in.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So this guy said it, and then the whole crowd began chanting it. What would you condemn that?
I'm here to talk about the entire
Hang on, you're here to answer my questions, actually. Would you condemn what they were chanting, death to America?
I think we should condemn Palestinians actually being killed.
Okay.
I think that...
That's not the question I'm asking you.
I'm going to borrow that you're here to answer my questions, actually. I'm going to borrow that sometime. Again, though, okay, you saw today in the congressional hearing at least a realization by some of the people there, especially the Colombian president, we've got a real problem here. Somehow this got out of control. Can you put the genie back in the bottle?
I just think the problem is so much bigger. It's that the elites who graduate from these universities come out of it with that woke worldview that distinguishes between powerful and powerless and ascribes all virtue to the powerless. It is so much deeper, and the anti-Semitism we're seeing here on college campuses, it really is a symptom of that much bigger problem. Yeah, our elites are completely amoral, and the class divide, to come back to something we talk about a lot, is being deeply impacted by the fact that everyone who has power in this country has graduated from a university where that is the reigning ideology. They hate America, and as a result, they also hate Jews.
It's really interesting when you think about how working class Americans, when you travel America, that you would think, sort of, if you believe the New York or LA worldview, that they would be the ones who are anti-Israel, who are anti-Jewish, who are anti-Semitic. And it actually is the other way around. Working class Americans, almost regardless of political identity, are very pro-Israel.
That is exactly right, and I would urge my fellow Jews to think about which side of the class divide they have been working to protect and which side they have been undermining with their rhetoric, because one side is standing with us and the other side is against us.
Fascinating. A whole different way to look at the world. The book lays it out well. It's great to see you. Love having you on the set. Thank you. The group charged with killing 2 moms appear in court for the first time. They are members of a group called God's Misfits and allegedly controlled an entire county in northern Oklahoma. Dog the Bounty Hunter joins us with how small groups turn towns into their kingdoms, where they are above the law. See you in a minute. All 4 suspects in the killing of 2 Oklahoma moms pleaded not guilty today. Local and state law enforcement brought in extra security for the court appearance. You can see them all in bulletproof vests there. They belong to a group called God's Misfits that allegedly ran the northern Oklahoma county they were arrested in like their own kingdom. They thought they could get away with murder as evidence. Family members of Jillian Kelly and Veronica Butler filed into the courtroom shouting at the suspects. Some of them had to hold Veronica's dad back after he lunged towards those in handcuffs. NewsNation senior correspondent Brian Enton interviewed Veronica's aunt.
There's just too many emotions, so much anger. I don't understand how somebody can hate somebody so much that you want to kill them. My niece did not deserve that, neither did the young lady with her. She was just there to help her. We didn't deserve this.
Brian is back with us this evening. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Leland. Yeah, this was a hearing unlike anything I've ever really covered. First of all, security, you mentioned it was tight. They had a police drone up. They had snipers on the roof. They actually had handheld metal detectors. I even had to take my hoodie off. Couldn't even wear my hoodie inside. And then you mentioned the family in the courtroom, the victim's family. They were, like, not shouting, but talking to the suspects when they came in. I've never seen anything like it. The judge allowed it. They were saying things like calling them bastard, you're a sorry ass piece of you-know-what, to Grandma Tiffany, sort of the mastermind behind all of this. According to police, one of the victim's family members called her an effing B-word. You killed my daughter. All of this was happening in court. They're holding back the dad of Veronica while the court hearing is going on. So it was bizarre. You remember yesterday we interviewed the judge. We had him on your show, the judge from a different county who knew one of the suspects, who told us a little bit about God's Misfits, the cult group. And he didn't have anything to do with the criminal case. But after he did the interview that we had on your show, he actually got fired. He was told he had to resign by the city council here because they weren't happy with him talking to us. I went back to his house today to find out what happened. This is what he told me.
I was sitting here in the house, and I got a phone call. There was a city council meeting last night, and they said, you need to come over here. So I went over there. It's only a block. I walked over. And I went in, and they were in executive session. When it was over, 3 or 4 minutes, they called me in, sat down, and they said, we've had a lot of static about your interview, and we don't like it. The mayor has absolute control over my job. I'm appointed. He can hire me or fire me. And I said, well, just fire me. One of the councilmen popped up and said, oh, you're going to turn in your resignation. He's very nasty about it. I didn't appreciate that. And I said, that's not a problem. I'll quit.
So the vibe is very strange here, Leland, when you talk about the suspects. I told you last night they're powerful. They own thousands of acres of land. Nobody wants to talk about God's Misfits, this religious group, and this is kind of evidence of that. I mean, the judge spoke out, and now he's without a job tonight, Leland.
Yeah. I mean, you think about if they can fire the judge, what they can do to normal people in a town like where you are.
Yeah.
Brian, incredible reporting throughout all this, as always, with what you bring. Keep it up. We'll see what you have tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
Dwayne Chapman, best known as Dog the Bounty Hunter, with us now. He's familiar with small-town crime, small-town justice in America. Chapman spent 20 years capturing criminals from the streets. Is a bounty hunter serving his own justice. Clips from his 2000s TV show, where he bring down some of America's most dangerous people. We all remember the show. Just came out with a new book, 9 Lives and Counting, a bounty hunter's journey to faith, hope, and redemption, about his turn towards faith and how he now hopes to help some of the people he captured. Good to see you. Boy, I'm guessing hearing Brian's reporting. Yeah, good to see you. Hearing some of Brian's reporting, I bet brought back some memories of some trips to places just like Texas County, Oklahoma that you had.
Yes, sir. Well, I bounty hunted number 1 for 43 years. Brian and I are good friends. Oklahoma has the second largest death penalty in the United States since 1976. So these people that are upset because their family members have been killed, and these guys that do it, instead of God's misfits, they need to be called the devil's herd. They're heading to the death penalty. And these little groups like that in small towns, that town may be scared of them, but, welcome to the real world. They're going to face the gallows, lethal injection, whatever it is. Unbelievable. Thank God it's in the South where they're going to pay for their crime instead of in places they might get a personal reconnaissance bond, and that's it. Some of the things I've investigated for the last couple hours on how it happened, it was absolutely planned. They bought phones, they bought tasers, they took those poor mothers out there, they dropped them in a well. I mean, this is absolutely premeditated, first-degree homicide. And I'm sure the jury in Oklahoma, Guyman, Oklahoma is a small town. I learned how to crop dust and fly planes there. I was there, in Texas, Guyman, all that area. And people there are God-fearing individuals. These people are going to the death house. And it doesn't matter, for the parents or the relatives. I know my daughter was killed in a car accident, and the person that was driving, he died too. And it didn't matter if he died with her, she still died. So there's no justification at all when someone's killed like that, even if they go to the death house, because it doesn't bring them back. But again, thank God it happened in places where they believe that a crime is crime and murder is murder. And I'm telling you, they're going to the death house, these people.
Yeah, the idea of the capital part of this, capital murder, had not occurred to me. We'll ask Brian to look into that. When you think about these sort of small rural towns, though, and that they are, to so much of America, right, there's a Norman Rockwell-esque version of it, and you think about small town America, Pleasantville, where nothing bad happens. How is it that, though, these sort of bands of people, I'm going to call them gangs or cults or whatever, get control of the politics and of the town to the point, I don't know about you, I was shocked that they made the judge resign because he gave an interview.
Well, that's bullying, okay? That's how they do. We did one of the last shows we did while Beth was still alive was in Pueblo, Colorado, the murder capital of the world. And I went after a guy that was the leader of the gangbangers. And you know what? Everyone liked him, and he was a bully. They were scared of him. So what happened was $5,000 cash. I gave it to one of his best friends who turned him in. So money talks to those people. I mean, they may act tough and be tough. I have bounty hunted there. I've heard of these guys before. They're just full of hot air. So, but that hot air caused a murder. So they will pay for it. And again, thank God it's in states where they just don't give them walking papers, OR, or a PR bond, release them, and da-da-da. And if they do release them on bond, we still bounty hunt.
Yeah,
so if they release them,
these folks aren't getting. Yeah, I don't think
so. I'm
these
glad
folks are getting
no bail.
Kind of bail. Doug, I'm interested in your book, 9 Lives and Counting.
Thank you.
Faith, Hope, and Redemption. Has your view of the criminal justice system or of criminals, because we all remember the show, we all remember how you viewed the people you were going after. Has your view of them now changed?
No, I was in prison in the 70s in Texas, the South, and one of the police officers that drove me to start my time said, "Dog, I'm going to tell you right now, you could change your life. You made a mistake. I was in a motorcycle gang. I didn't commit the crime, but one of my brothers did." And he said, "You know what? You right now could be someone someday." So, that, and on all my shows and before the shows, it was called the backseat ride. And I like to talk to him and say, because you made a mistake like that, you can change your life. Now, back to this God whatever misfits, that's more than a mistake. I don't know. I'm glad, again, they won't get out on bail. 2 of them are ratty. 2 of them are rats. So that group, they're all together and, nobody talks. Well, 2 of them are already making deals. That's how the cops have found out a lot of stuff. 2 of them turned snitches. So, there's no group like that. No group will keep their mouth shut. There's nothing not known as not snitching. A lot of people, I won't snitch because you're too stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
Wisdom by Dog. I love it. Hey, it's good to have you on the show. Thank you. Congratulations on the book. I think your message is one
Thank you, brother.
That a lot of people can learn from. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Never before has the old-fashioned American road trip, just a road trip, looked better. How new warnings from pilots and engineers about the safety of aviation in America might have you rethinking flying this summer.
His karate lessons might not turn him into a black belt. Hi-ya! And even after band camp, he might not be the greatest musician. But with the 3% annual percentage yield you can earn on a PenFed premium online savings account, your goal of supporting his dreams...
Thanks for everything, Mom and Dad.
...will always be worth it. Apply today at PenFed.org/savings. Federally insured by NCUA. $5 minimum to open account. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
Many of our U.S. veterans and service members face challenges, mental health struggles, housing obstacles, food insecurity, and social isolation, to name just a few. I'm Bob Woodruff. My family and I started the Bob Woodruff Foundation in 2006 after I sustained a life-threatening injury while reporting from Iraq. Our service members had my back that day, and we need to have theirs now more than ever. At our foundation, we invest in solutions, so learn more about our work at bobwoodrufffoundation.org/success.
More than 6 million kids in the U.S. have ADHD, and many aren't getting the support they need. At understood.org, we know that parents want to help, especially when their child has questions like,
why am I always falling behind? Why do I feel so alone?
We provide parents with the resources they need to help kids with ADHD thrive. Your child wants to thrive. Be the reason they do. Visit understood.org/thereason to get started.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
With journalists in more than 100 newsrooms across the country, this is NewsNation, America's fastest-growing cable news network.
Bring on spring projects with Spring Black Friday savings from the Home Depot. With free delivery on over 2 million items, you can bring on the spring cleaning, the patio decorating, and the front yard gardening. And if you need it fast, get same-day delivery on thousands of items like pavers or planters to keep your yard looking beautiful. Bring on the spring doing and spring your way only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m. subject to availability.
We are Lions International, the world's largest service organization. We are volunteers committed to strengthening our communities and supporting those in need, one act of kindness at a time. For more than a century, Lions have been serving a world in need right here in our community and around the world. Lions International makes the impossible possible. This is your invitation to join us, because the only thing missing from our mission to make a difference is you. Visit lionsclubs.org to find a local Lions Club near you.
Get hurt in the game? We tough it out. Feel exhausted? We push on. Feeling down? We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But there are times when bootstraps aren't enough. When stress gets to us and we need to talk to someone about what we're really going through. So we're going to reach out, because sometimes mental health is not a one-person job. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
You can't escape a traffic jam. Know what else you can't escape? Seasonal allergies. And you might think you can avoid that coffee stain until... Oh, really? You can't escape a lot of things in life, but you can escape prediabetes. Prediabetes captures 1 in 3 adults. There are usually no signs of prediabetes. In fact, most people don't even know they have it. But with early diagnosis, you can change the outcome and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Take action by taking the 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. You might not be able to escape having this song stuck in your head, but you can escape prediabetes. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Coming off, literally. Just this year on Boeing planes, a United Airlines flight lost a tire on takeoff. A door plug blew off mid-flight. We all remember that picture. A Delta flight lost its wheel before takeoff. An engine cover ripped off a Boeing 737 during takeoff in Denver. Turns out the airline needed to tweak its maintenance procedures. A Boeing whistleblower testified before Congress today and said he wouldn't put his own family on some Boeing planes. And it's not just Boeing planes. The union that represents American Airlines, 15,000 pilots, just released a series of warnings saying that APA, that's the name of the union, has been tracking a significant spike in safety and maintenance-related problems in our operation. They list problems like tools left in wheel wells, pressure to return aircraft to line service to maintain on-time performance. They say that's due to a lack of spare aircraft, and the removal of overnight maintenance checks unless the aircraft has been written up or had scheduled maintenance. So that's what they say. The problem is the union goes on to tell its pilots, remember, don't rush, don't be intimidated, and don't be pressured into doing something that doesn't pass the smell test. Captain Latane Campbell spent a long time in the U.S. military as a captain, now flies internationally as a captain as well. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you. Is this as worrisome to somebody who knows so much as you do as it is to the general public?
You know, I've been flying for my company for 30 years. And the interesting dynamic that's occurring right now, we're having huge growing pains because of changeover. The experienced guys are retiring, and there's very rapid upgrades to captain, for example, or lots of people new to maintenance, a lot of new people on the ramp. So there's a lot of opportunity for mistakes to be made. Those mistakes were learned and incorporated into proper procedures in the past, but now we've got all the new folks that, unless there's a very, very focused effort to get them dialed in, and I think this letter you referred to between American and its unions is just that, then you're going to see these type of incidents occurring. Now, I would say this, the safest way to fly is on an airplane, without question. Commercial aviation is super safe, but this is a great opportunity. We always say within the accident world, an accident that nearly happens is worth its weight in gold because you learn the lessons without anybody getting hurt. And to a degree, we're approaching an area where collectively these mistakes are leaning or trending towards a bad outcome. And the fact that it's being identified is a very, very good thing.
Look, fair enough. And you point out rightly that flying is the safest way to travel. There hasn't been a crash since 2009 among U.S. airlines. So a huge win in safety. That said, you can get complacent out of this. I guess the question to ask you out of what you said is, are we learning are we learning the lessons? Are we learning the lessons of a door blowing out and of bad engineering on the 737 by Boeing? Or is there just such a push towards the bottom line that we're doubling the mistake of not learning the lessons from the near accidents?
That's to be determined, really. I mean, I'm a data guy. I want to see the results. And the wonderful thing in the aviation community, especially U.S. commercial aviation, is we literally evaluate every single flight we conduct. And any flaws that evolve are identified so that we can mitigate them. But when you have all the new people out here, and you even have a generational change in, say, elan or professionalism with a specific job, when people don't understand that this isn't just a normal job, even ramp personnel have to do exactly what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it in order to prevent airplanes from being taxied into other aircraft or trucks with brakes left off sliding into the undersides of airplanes.
Yeah.
You know?
Look,
so
we see so much of it now because of social media. You know, you see always, look, if a plane, if one wing runs into another wing or into a tail, whatever, or a baggage cart, whatever sort of incident happens, we now see it all over social media, right? And we've got all the video from inside planes. Is it actually happening more, or are we just hearing about it and seeing about it more?
I think partially you're hearing about it and seeing it more. I mean, everybody is videotaping every landing. It's almost comical to us as pilots to make an approach, say, to London and have some Yahoo do a commentary on it. I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's a very dynamic business, and it takes a lot of professionalism to do it well. And I would just say that if we can just get people focused on just focusing at work and understanding that everybody in the link is very important to conducting safe flight. And we can't do our job 99.99% perfectly and then have an accident. That 0.01% is disastrous. So I always say you're only as good as the experience you apply. And when you don't have a lot of experience, you really have to lean on your protocols and stuff to make sure that the flight is conducted properly. And I assume every flight that I'm going to have a critical moment and I'm ready.
Well, that's why people in the back are able to get a little sleep when you're up front. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Great seeing you, and enjoy being on. Thank you.
All right, pleasure. The networks, the TV hosts, everybody, we want to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden debate. Who doesn't? Trump wants to debate Joe Biden, but the far left is having some serious second thoughts. The new excuse by Democrats for why Biden should be allowed to end a modern American tradition.
To reach adulthood. That's why vaccines matter so much. For 40 years, Rotary and partners have delivered vaccines globally. Like here and even here, in your neighborhood and around the world, Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
You're listening to NewsNation on the go. Available 24/7 in the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section and after Dad's back injury. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Trouble with opioids can start at home with unused medicines, such as pills, patches, and syrups. You can remove the risk and protect your family. Find out how at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Junior Achievement is where dreams take flight. We are helping students connect what they learn in school to future work and career success. We are teaching them how to manage money to achieve financial security as adults. And we are showing them that starting a business also means changing lives and communities. However, we can't do it alone. Go to ja.org to learn more.
Well, there's a new chapter out in our 1984 world. Debates are now anti-democracy. David Frum writes in The Atlantic why Biden should not debate Trump, going on to say the networks want their show, but to give the challenger equal status on a TV stage would be a dire normalization of his attempted coup. The timing is not a coincidence. A little more than a week ago, all the TV networks, including NewsNation, sent an open letter asking Trump and Biden to agree to follow the tradition that's been going on for decades now and debate. Trump said anytime, anywhere. Mr. Biden refuses to commit. Cue the explanations. Frum was on Morning Joe yesterday.
It's not a matter of an opinion. It's not Biden's personal dislike. It's a juridical fact that Donald Trump has been indicted for violent crimes to overthrow an election and against the Constitution. The president shouldn't be on the stage with such a person.
NewsNation political contributor, host of the Progressive podcast, Chris Hahn, is with us. All right, Hahn, let's just be fair about this and agree that if Democrats thought that Joe Biden could beat Donald Trump in a debate, they would have absolutely no problem with Joe Biden debating.
I think he can beat Donald Trump in a debate, and I have absolutely no problem with him debating. And I wish the RNC would rejoin the Commission on Presidential Debates, which they withdrew from a year ago.
Again, let's be fair about this. Donald Trump, who cares what the RNC says? Donald Trump has said anytime, anywhere.
Why has
Joe Biden?
He controls them.
Why? Okay, but why? Who cares what the RNC says? Nobody cares. People in Washington go, talk about what the RNC and the DNC says. Donald Trump says anytime, anywhere. Right. Joe Biden will not commit to a debate. Why not?
I think there needs to be ground rules for the debate. That's why there's a commission on debates. Everybody from, for the last 30 years has abided by that, other than Donald Trump and the RNC, which will not agree to it now. I suggest one podium so that we don't have to worry about people cutting each other off, and a longer debate with longer answers, because we're choosing the leader of the free world, not the next pundit and podcast host.
Okay. Maybe they'd like to have you help write some of the rules. I have no idea. But the point remains the same, though. Donald Trump has said anytime, anywhere. Joe Biden has not. Why has those people who think tradition and democracy and institutions are so important not come out and started to say, hey, Joe Biden needs to debate to protect democracy, to protect democratic debate?
If Donald Trump really means anytime, anywhere, he should instruct his daughter-in-law to have the RNC rejoin the Commission on Presidential Debates. Until he does that, he's like the guy saying he wants to fight and telling his friends to hold him back. That's who he is. He's a coward. He doesn't want any rules. He wants a shouting match. And the American people deserve a real discussion about real issues, not what happened in the last debates. He needs to rejoin the Presidential Commission if he really wants it.
Chris, what I've taken from this, Chris, what I've taken from this segment, because we got to go, is that you think the RNC should rejoin the Commission on Presidential Debates. That is my takeaway, which I see you agreeing with.
Did I say it enough?
There we go. We got to run. You want to talk about? we got to run. You want to talk about an interesting program coming up? Okay, two people you never thought would be on the same show. Okay, and I'm not talking about Hahn and I. I'm talking about Chris Cuomo. He's got Bill O'Reilly, and he has Rosie O'Donnell. Only Cuomo could bring that group together, and he will do it right now. Here's Chris.